Hello everyone, Jaguar here. This video is going to be about the settings of the game. I'm going to do a tutorial series, and this is going to be the first video just going through the settings, because it's an RTS game. There's lots of possible keys to press and things to change, and it's quite useful to go through the keyboard binds, because some of them are very useful for gameplay. I'm going to gloss over most of the stuff not to do with gameplay. Obviously graphics and audio settings, you can figure those things out for yourself, and the game indeed will change those, particularly the graphics settings, to suit your system. If you go to the keyboard section and general, everything here should be okay, but things like toggling music, pausing the game, you might want to check that those binds are useful for you, or just familiarize yourself with them. But mostly you're going to want to look in the unit section. This is where all the gameplay specific stuff is really, to do with selecting units. This is what you spend most of the game doing, in a way, selecting different types of units and issuing commands. So here's the biggie, select commander. This is very useful. If you start getting alerts saying that your commander is under attack, you don't really want to go to a different planet and suddenly try and find your commander. You just want to smack a key on the keyboard and go straight to him. Well, that's the key. You can also do it from the graphical user interface in the top left corner. I believe you can select your name there from the list, and I think it goes to you, but I've bound that to F1 as a nice, easy to reach key. I can do that by feel, so in an emergency I can do that, and also just generally early game when you're using your commander a lot to issue orders. It can be useful once you've selected some fabbers, for instance, and issued them some build orders. It's nice to be able to just hit a key, go straight back to the commander, that kind of thing. And from a gameplay perspective, making sure that your commander is not idle is so important. It's something that players often forget, especially mid-game, end-game. You're focusing so much on managing your armies that you might, have forgotten to give your commander some more build orders. So just tap it now and then throughout the game. Make sure your commander is doing something, because he's one of your most efficient fabrication units. Not to mention a powerful unit in terms of destruction. You'll see that I've got select idle fabbers as F2, because I've also given that some priority. You don't want your fabbers idle, you want your fabbers doing work. You want them to be using them to grab more metal, build your economy, establish proxy bases or mining bases perhaps. I said mining bases because I've been playing Minecraft a lot lately, so ignore that. Also select factories, select idle factories. These are all keys that you might want to bind. I would say that these two, select commander and select idle fabbers, they're the big ones. You've also got others specific to units. I would definitely recommend binding these ones. So I find that air units are particularly useful. Say if you're looking around on a planet and you see that a small squad that you've sent out somewhere, or maybe you sent a fabber to try and capture some X, you see that there's some bombers coming in to attack him. You can quickly just use this, select all air combat units. You can, if there's aren't any on screen that you wanted to select specifically, you can just use that. I use Control X because it's easy to do with my left hand. Obviously my right hand is on the mouse. You can just hit that, and then you can right click and send them where they need to go. It's very, very useful. You can do the same thing with combat units, land that is, and naval. And also this one's a biggie, select all matching units on screen. I didn't learn this until some way through beta, I think. I started playing the game in alpha. You can double click on a unit to select all units of that type on screen. But you can also just select the unit and then hit Control Z or whatever you want to bind it to. I use it all the time. I think pretty much all players will use it because it's so useful. And I found that double clicking on a moving air unit was very tricky. So when I found out about that, I was like, oh, hallelujah, it's very effective. So familiarize yourself with those keys. They're all quite useful. Moving down, unit commands. Most of these you're going to be using your mouse for, but now and then you actually want to override the default command, like the contextual command that you'll get when you hover your mouse over something. I actually need to rebind some of these. I've left some of them empty because I used the control panel that appears on the right side of the screen there. But attack, you might want to like do an attack move instead of a move command, for instance. Patrol, we use that all the time for like area patrol, or setting up air units to patrol a certain area. Stop is a very useful command, because sometimes you issue like the wrong order, for instance, and you just want to stop it straight away before it does any more damage or does the wrong thing or mucks you up in any sort of further way. You can quickly stop, and then you can issue the right command again. Alt fire is a biggie, because that's your commander has an alternate fire mode, the Uber cannon. Very powerful, big area of effect, very useful. I've bound that to U because it stands for Uber cannon or Uber charge. But you can use whatever you want, obviously. That's one of the great things about the PA engine, is everything is rebindable to a different key. A few exceptions, like for camera commands and stuff, but nothing major. Also, load and unload, you might want to bind those. The T1 Pelican, the air transport, useful for sending a fabber to a moon, for instance, that kind of thing. Also, something people sometimes forget, you can delete units, and you can use that to delete your commander if you want to resign or forfeit the game. Sometimes people in a 1v1 game just sort of quit the game instead of resigning first, which forces your opponent to wait 3 minutes in a ranked game to get the win, which is rather frustrating. I wouldn't worry so much about unit orders. You can use the GUI for that instead. Energy on and energy off, or toggling energy orders, you might want to use those. They can be useful. Unit capture groups you'll be using a lot, or at least I highly recommend you do. I just left those to the defaults, like control and a number to assign a group number to a selection of groups, and then just hit that same number key to recall that unit, that group even. I would also quickly mention, I'll do a separate video for, sorry Andreas, I'll do a separate video for HotBuild, but this is a mod called HotBuild, which you can get through PAM, P-A-M-M, the Planetary Annihilation mod manager. Fantastic mod. Install that, and it opens up the whole world of Planetary Annihilation mods for you. Very easy to install a new mod and select it. HotBuild is just a fantastic mod that enhances the user interface for Planetary Annihilation a bit. It basically lets you, for instance, if I select F here, so if I press F in game, if I've got a fabber selected and I press F, the blueprint for a vehicle factory appears wherever my cursor is. So it saves me moving my mouse down to the bottom of the screen, clicking on the type of building I want to build or unit, and then moving back up to place it. You don't have to do that, you can just use the keyboard. But crucially, I can press F again, so if I press F twice, then you can see Bot Factory is second on the list here, meaning that I can just very quickly issue commands. It's just extremely helpful. I mean, this mod was made in alpha, I believe, I think by coder Colin, and then it was enhanced by other people. I'm sorry, I can't remember the author's name right now. I think a few people have basically worked on the mod, but it's been around for a while. And I think the fact that it was made so early indicates how useful so many people, saw it. We'll look into that in more detail in another video, but I'd highly recommend installing the PA mod manager and having a look at it. Alright, so that's pretty much all the settings that I think you'll need to look at. Lastly though, I will say for camera settings, you might want to use 4 keys to move the camera instead of relying on middle mouse button and drag and drop. I actually use a sort of combination of that, but I kind of wish I'd taught myself to use the middle mouse button from the start, because otherwise you're using 4 keys on the keyboard just for moving the camera, and arguably that is sort of a waste of keys. But that depends how competitive and how in-depth you want to go. The zoom levels can be useful, and the align to pole and track, they can be useful as well. If you're using the picture-in-picture, selecting a unit and then tracking it and then putting that in the picture-in-picture, that can be a very useful thing to do. And align to pole, I used that back in the day. I find it easier to get my bearings now, but the whole playing on a planet thing is quite disorientating for new players. I think it certainly was to me. So hitting that button will put the north pole of the planet at the top relative to where you were looking before. Like, it will rotate the camera to put the north pole at the top. It's quite useful. All the free movement stuff is really only if you want to make sort of videos or just zoom in and get an interesting angle on the action. Lastly though, capture anchor and recall anchor, these can be very useful from a gameplay perspective. You can in fact, before I start a 1v1 game, I normally do capture anchors for, say, my base, or where I intend to build my base, the enemy base, and then I'll use maybe another 2 or 3 capture anchors for like strategic locations on the planet, basically areas that have dense areas of metal spots. On all the planets, 1v1 planets especially, you know, there'll be key locations that you'll want to fight over because there's so much metal there. Okay, so I hope that helps. I'll make another video shortly going into camera controls and then go into sort of gameplay elements. But I thought I'd do this one first, because boring though it might be, the first thing you really have to do with the game is sort of familiarise yourself with the controls. And there's a lot of controls in Planetary Annihilation, as you can see. But you don't have to worry about most of them. I hope I've covered the main ones. If you think I've missed out anything important, please let me know, and I'll either update the video or I'll annotate the video to take into account what I might have missed. So, thanks for watching. I hope you found this helpful. Please leave me feedback in any way you you wish to leave it. Comment on the video or find me in the forums. And yeah, thanks for watching.